First of all, I think we all know that only 3.1% of our elected members of the legislature in this round are women, and that's 1 out of 31. At Belize City Council, we've actually gone backwards over the last 10 years or so. In 2003, we kind of hit a pinnacle when just over half of the members of City Council were women, 6 out of 11. Since that time, the numbers have decreased in every election since, to the point now where we have only 1 out of the 11 members being female. So in that case, it's really been a case of 1 step forward and 2 steps back. When we look at town boards, we find that less than 20% of the members of town boards are women. And in this case, too, the numbers have actually declined over the last few elections. We were actually up over 20% for a few years, and in this year's election, we actually dipped below that level for the first time in about 10 years. And when we look at village councils, we find that about 1.5 out of 7 members of village councils on average are women. And this varies quite a bit by district. But when you look at the national picture, it's 1.62 out of 7. More than a quarter of village councils in Belize have no women at all. Take a quick look at the global picture, just to see where we fit in as a country. When we look globally, we can see that women have made slow but steady progress, going from about 3% in 1945 to just over 20% this year. Most of this progress has been made after 1995, when the Beijing conference focused particular attention on women's underrepresentation, and many countries started looking at temporary special measures or quotas in order to increase the number of women in their national legislatures. We find that there's wide differences among regions of the world and within regions. So for example, when you look at the Latin America and Caribbean region as a whole, we find that it's just over the global average at about 21–22%. But when we look at the average for the English-speaking Caribbean, we do much worse. And the average in the English-speaking Caribbean is less than 15%, so there's quite a drastic difference there. And of course, Belize sits at the bottom of the list, even within the Caribbean, at 3.1%. There are 32 countries now that have more than 30% women in their national legislatures. Over half of these are from the developing world, including 8 from Africa and 6 from Latin America, which I think puts the lie to an attitude we sometimes hear that this is a more appropriate topic for northern countries, that it's not something that's as relevant for countries of the South. I think that many countries have proven that wrong. Guyana is the only country in the English Caribbean that has broken that 30% mark at 31.3%. And I was talking to Ms. Backer before, and we'll be hearing about her later, about some of the experiences in Guyana that have led them to that point. I think it's very important to understand that 28 out of the 32 countries that have more than 30% women in their national legislatures have used some form of quota system to get there. And it's an absolutely dramatic, it makes an absolutely dramatic difference when a country adopts quotas to get to some kind of greater representation of women and some kind of greater gender balance.